Reality check. Here's what the COP26 deals actually mean for our future climate. There were a few breakthroughs, but some experts warn the deals may not meet the urgency of the moment. Specifically, experts are concerned they won't get the world closer to limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. There's a lot of big statements, which don't have the details underneath. Exactly when, how much, who's going to do what, said Helen Mountford, Vice President for Climate and Economics with the World Resources Institute. I think what we can say pretty confidently though, is that, no, they don't get us far enough, she said. It's not going to be keeping us under that 1.5 degrees Celsius global temperature rise. Ending deforestation. The first substantial deal announced at COP26 last week was significant. After years of negotiations on how to protect forests, the deal is consequential. Forests, when they are logged or degrade, can emit carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, accounting for around 11% of the world's total CO2 emissions. It's a fairly comprehensive deal, including key nations, with some of the world's largest carbon stocks locked away in tropical forests.
Reality check. On the whole, this deal is a breakthrough after fragmented agreements have come and gone over the years. The question now is whether countries will actually do what they signed up for, and whether, in the next week, negotiators can build in a system of accountability. The Environment Minister in Indonesia, which is home to some of the world's most carbon-rich tropical forests, said on Wednesday that it was unfair to expect Indonesia to stop clearing forests for development. If the concept is that there is no deforestation, it means that there should be no roads. Then what about the people? Should they remain isolated? Saitai Nabaya wrote on Twitter. Other forest-rich nations that have seen former deals break down are also skeptical. Ending financing of fossil fuel abroad. 25 countries so far have signed on to an agreement to end the financing of unabated fossil fuel projects abroad by 2022. Unabated projects would be those that do not capture greenhouse gas emissions at the source before they escape to the atmosphere. Several countries had already agreed to end coal financing, but this deal is the first to include gas and oil, so it's something of a breakthrough. The agreement to end international public support for fossil fuels is a game changer. It effectively ends all public financing for coal plants, as there is little financing for coal outside the signatories, said Christine Shearer, Program Director for Coal with Global Energy Monitor. Reality check. The statement opens a path to a more official deal, but critics say it doesn't go far enough and should include financing for fossil fuel projects at home, not just internationally. Shearer says that the next step must be to phase out fossil fuel projects domestically. And Jake Schmidt, Senior Strategic Director at the Natural Resources Defense Council, points out there is still a lot more money in fossil fuels than renewables. There's $17 billion in public finance going to overseas gas per year, 4 times the financing for renewables. That's from the US, Japan, China, South Korea, China and development banks, he said. Ending coal use. COP26 President Alok Sharma has said he wants Glasgow to be the place where coal is consigned to history. There has been good progress here. 23 new countries on Thursday signed a statement in which they agreed to stop approving or building new coal projects, and to phase out coal in the 2030s for developed countries and the 2040s for developing countries. Some of the countries were big coal users, like Indonesia, Vietnam and South Korea. In the lead-up to COP26, several countries, including China, announced they would stop financing coal projects outside their borders. China has been the world's biggest coal financier by far, and its announcement brought the international bankrolling of coal projects to a near close. The US, EU and UK also announced they would partly fund South Africa's transition from coal, which prompted requests from other coal-reliant nations, like Indonesia, for similar support. Chris Littlecott, Associate Director of the Fossil Fuel Transition Program at climate think tank E3G, said that the principle of ending coal use won last week, and new tools and financing are now available to make the transition away from it. A new chapter of the world's coal exit effort can now begin, Little COP said. China, India and the US did not sign on to the global coal to clean power transition statement. The new commitments take the total number of signatories to 46, and include some big coal users, including Indonesia, Ukraine and South Korea. Little COP said that it wasn't surprising that China and India didn't sign on, but that the absence of the US was likely a result of domestic politics. I think if the US had been perhaps 2 or 3 weeks further on in its domestic policy holders, then there would have been a much better chance of the US being willing to say something, he said. But given the shenanigans in Capitol Hill, it's unsurprising that they didn't. The targets fall short of what experts, including the International Energy Agency, say is required to achieve net zero by 2050. Net zero emissions can be achieved if countries reduce current greenhouse gas emissions and also remove some of what's already in the atmosphere, so the net addition is zero. Who should pay more than a decade ago? Wealthy nations agreed to transfer $100 billion a year, starting in 2020, to the developing world to address the climate crisis. The funds should help developing countries reduce emissions by transitioning from fossil fuels to renewables, but also to adapt to climate impacts, which could include infrastructure to stop flooding or upgrading homes to withstand more extreme weather. A report published by the COP26 presidency ahead of the summit found that with the current pledges, the goal wouldn't be reached until 2023, 3 years after the target. That lack of funding has created mistrust among developing nations of richer countries. But a number of countries have made new pledges during COP26, including Japan, Spain and Switzerland, and on Thursday, US climate envoy John Kerry and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the target could be met by 2022, according to Reuters. Reality check. While some leaders are celebrating the closing gap, Sharma has said it is clear the $100 billion a year, when it's reached, won't be sufficient.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.